Hey, we are in 1 Samuel chapter 15 and 16. We see Samuel disobey God yet again, and God is done with him. He's ready to pick a new king. Wasn't supposed to be king in the first place, and so here's where we get our introduction to David, the man after God's own heart. One day, Samuel told Saul, "The Lord had me choose you to be king of his people, Israel. Now listen to this message from the Lord. When the Israelites were on their way out of Egypt, the nation of Amalek attacked them. I am the Lord, all-powerful, and now I'm going to make Amalek pay. Go and attack the Amalekites. Destroy them and their possessions, and don't have any pity. Kill their men, women, children, even their babies. Slaughter their cattle, sheep, camels, donkeys." Saul sent messengers who told every town and village to send men to join the army at Telem. There were 210,000 troops in all, and 10,000 of these were from Judah. Saul organized them, then led them to a valley near one of the towns in Amalek, where they got ready to make a surprise attack. Some Kenites lived nearby, and Saul told them, "Your people were kind to our nation when we left Egypt, and I don't want you to get killed when I wipe out the Amalekites. Leave here and stay away from them." The Kenites left, and Saul attacked the Amalekites from Havilah to Shur, which is just east of Egypt. Every Amalekite was killed except King Agag. Saul and his army let Agag live, and they also spared the best sheep and cattle. They didn't want to destroy anything of value, so they only killed the animals that were worthless and weak. The Lord told Samuel, "Saul has stopped obeying me, and I'm sorry I made him king." Samuel was angry, and he cried out in prayer to the Lord all night. Early the next morning, he went to talk with Saul. Someone told him Saul went to Carmel, where he had a monument built so everyone could remember his victory, and then he left for Gilgal. Samuel finally caught up with Saul, and Saul told him, "I hope the Lord will bless you. I have done what the Lord told me." "Then why," Samuel asked, "do I hear sheep and cattle?" "The army took them from the Amalekites," Saul explained. "They kept the best sheep and cattle so they could sacrifice them to the Lord your God, but we destroyed everything else." "Stop," Samuel said. "Let me tell you what the Lord told me last night." "All right," Saul answered. Samuel continued, "You may not think you're very important, but the Lord chose you to be king, and you're in charge of the tribes of Israel. When the Lord sent you on this mission, he told you to wipe out all those worthless Amalekites. Why didn't you listen to the Lord? Why did you keep the animals and make him angry?" "But I did listen to the Lord," Saul answered. "He sent me on a mission, and I went. I captured Agag and captured his nation. All the animals were going to be destroyed anyway. That's why the army brought the best sheep and cattle to Gilgal as sacrifices to the Lord your God." "Tell me, Samuel, does the Lord really want sacrifices and offerings?" "No, he doesn't want your sacrifice. He wants you to obey him. Rebelling against God or disobeying him because you are proud is just as bad as worshiping idols or asking them for advice. You refuse to do what God told you, so God has decided that you can't be king." "I have sinned," Saul admitted. "I disobeyed both you and the Lord. I was afraid of the army, and I listened to them instead. Please forgive me and come back with me so I can worship the Lord." "No," Samuel replied. "You disobeyed the Lord. I won't go back with you. Now the Lord has said that you can't be king of Israel any longer." As Samuel turned to go, Saul grabbed the edge of Samuel's robe. It tore. Samuel said, "The Lord has torn the kingdom of Israel away from you today. He will give it to someone who is better than you. Besides, the eternal God of Israel isn't a human being. He doesn't tell lies or change his mind." Saul said, "I did sin, but please honor me in front of the leaders of the people of the army and the people of Israel. Come back with me so I can worship the Lord your God." Samuel followed Saul back, and Saul worshiped the Lord. Then Samuel shouted, "Bring me King Agag, the Amalek of Amalek." Agag came in chains, and he was saying to himself, "Surely they won't kill me now." But Samuel said, Agag, you have snatched children from their mother's arms and killed them. Now your mother will be without children. Then Samuel chopped Agag to pieces at the place of worship in Gilgal. Samuel went home to Ramah, and Saul returned to his home in Gibeah. Even though Samuel felt sad for Saul, Samuel never saw him again. Before we get to chapter 16, let's check out what has taken place here, so we know where everything is at. Here's where the Kenites were living. The Kenites were still a part of this thing because they had helped out the Egyptians. In fact, Moses's father-in-law Jethro was a Kenite, and they traveled with the Egyptians and were given a place to live. The Amalekites are in this area. Havilah to Shur, they fought this. Egypt is down here. So this is where the battles took place. Mount Carmel is in this area. And then Gibeah is in this area, with Gilgal right there in that area as well. So you see the battles that have taken place. Again, see how the country of Israel has shrunk due to losing battles and people coming in and conquering them and taking over, as well as the Amalekites did. Let's go ahead and come back. To chapter 16, and then we'll finish up with some thoughts. The Lord was sorry he made Saul the king of Israel. One day he said, Samuel, I've rejected Saul, and I refuse to let him be king any longer. Stop feeling sad about him. Put some olive oil in a small container and go visit a man named Jesse who lives in Bethlehem. I've chosen one of his sons to be my king. Samuel answered, if I do that, Saul will find out and have me killed. Take a calf with you, the Lord replied. Tell everyone that you've come to offer it as a sacrifice to me, and then invite Jesse to the sacrifice. When I show you which one of his sons I have chosen, pour the olive oil on his head. Samuel did what the Lord had told him and went to Bethlehem, and the town leaders went to him, but were terribly afraid and asked, is this a friendly visit? Yes, it is, Samuel answered. I've come to offer a sacrifice to the Lord. You get yourselves ready to take part in the sacrifice and come with me. Samuel also invited Jesse and his sons to come to the sacrifice, and he got them ready to take part. When Jesse and his sons arrived, Samuel noticed Jesse's oldest son, Eliab. He has to be the one the Lord has chosen, Samuel said to himself. But the Lord told him, Samuel, don't think Eliab is the one just because he's tall and handsome. He isn't the one I've chosen. People judge others by what they look like, but I judge people by what is in their hearts. Jesse told his son Abinadab to go over to Samuel, but Samuel said, no, the Lord hasn't chosen him. Next, Jesse sent his son Shammah to him, and Samuel said, the Lord hasn't chosen him either. Jesse had all 7 sons go over to Samuel, and finally Samuel said, Jesse, the Lord hasn't chosen any of these young men. Do you have any more sons? Yes, Jesse answered. My youngest son David is out taking care of the sheep. Send for him, Samuel said. We won't start the ceremony until he gets here. Jesse sent for David. He was a healthy, good-looking boy with a sparkle in his eyes. As soon as David came, the Lord told Samuel, he's the one, get up and pour olive oil on his head. Samuel poured the oil on David's head while his brothers watched. At that moment, the Spirit of the Lord took control of David and stayed with him from then on. Samuel returned home to Ramah. The Spirit of the Lord had left Saul, and an evil spirit from the Lord was terrifying him. It's an evil spirit from God that's frightening you, Saul's official told him. Your Majesty, let us go and look for someone who is good at playing the harp. He can play for you whenever the evil spirit from God bothers you, and you'll feel better. All right, Saul answered. Find me someone who is good at playing the harp and bring him here. Well, a man named Jesse who lives in Bethlehem has a son who can play the harp, one official said. He's a brave warrior. He's good looking. He can speak well, and the Lord is with him. Saul sent a message to Jesse. Tell your son David to leave your sheep and come here to me. Jesse loaded the donkey with bread and goat skin full of wine. Then he told David to take the donkey and the young goat to Saul. And David went to Saul and started working for him. Saul liked him so much that he put David in charge of carrying his weapons. Not long after this, Saul sent another message to Jesse. I really like David. Please let him stay with me. Whenever the evil spirit from God bothered Saul, David would play his harp. Saul would relax and feel better, and the evil spirit would go away. So we see several things happening with Saul. First of all, you think, you know what, did Saul do anything really that bad? He claims that he was going to use those animals as a sacrifice to God. But here's the reality. God doesn't need them animals. He gave Saul a job to do, and Saul didn't do it. Sometimes we think or we act like we're doing what God wants us to do, but it's really a cover for us to do what we want to do. So we have to be careful that we give God our heart, our complete heart, and that we obey him. And then we see how just the providence of God works as God chooses David to be the next king. But all of a sudden the doors are open that David can be in the court of Saul and do well there, so that he is going to make a name for himself in the next few years to become the next king. Obey is greater than sacrifice. Have a great day.